Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Jagdeep Ahluwalia. I am the founding secretary of the Indo-American Chamber of Commerce, which I currently serve as executive director. First, we hope you are all being safe and keeping safe distance. These are very trying times, and we hope that we will collectively be able to recover from these trying times. We are very privileged that we live in a country where the government is making a best faith effort to support business with these programs that we are talking about. We, thanks to the support of President Tarush Anand and our board members, Swapan Dhairyawan, have come up with a series of business seminars that can benefit our members. And we will be continuing with this series, changing the content and the programs based on the changing needs of the community during these troubled times. I have a couple of housekeeping items before we come to the presentation. I would like to ask anybody who has logged in to type in your questions. At the bottom of your screen, there is a place where you can click and type in your question. So if you have any questions for any of the speakers, please type them in, and they will be answered at the end of the two presentations. I would also like to draw your attention to the fact that we will be hosting another webinar on Thursday. Mr. Nasrullah Khan, the Executive Vice President and Chief Lending Officer at the Wallace Bank, will be talking about the Payment Protection Program. We were planning to do it a week later, but then we realized that with the way the banks are very actively promoting this program, we were worried that we may run out of funds by the time we do it. So we are encouraging you to all attend the day after tomorrow's program on the Payment Protection Program, or to go to the SBA website to understand what the program is about, and go to one of the SBA approved banks to apply for this money, which could, if used appropriately, become a grant. With that, I take you to the page which has some of those links that we would suggest you follow the chamber on. We are on Facebook, we are on LinkedIn, and we're on Twitter. Every one of you attending today's webinar will be receiving a copy of the presentation, so you will get these links in the presentation. And we encourage you to sign up with Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter so that we can constantly keep updating you on what's happening. With that, I want to move to the start of the program with the welcome address by the President of the Indo-American Chamber of Commerce, Tarush Anand. He is the President and the Chairman of the Board of the Indo-American Chamber of Commerce. Outside of the Chamber, he is an attorney by profession. He is a partner at the law firm of Brown Sims, where he practices civil litigation. He has represented a broad range of domestic and international businesses in various types of business disputes across the country. He has received several awards and honors over the years, including an AV preeminent rating from Martingale-Hubbell and selection to the Texas Super Lawyers Rising Stars list for several years. Ladies and gentlemen, I present the Chairman of the Board of the Indo-American Chamber of Commerce, our President, Tarush Anand. Thank you.
Thank you,
Tarush, on to you.
Yeah, thank you, Jagdeep, and thank you everyone for attending. We are privileged to have you attending with us. For those of you who are existing chamber members or have been to our events in the past, welcome again. For those of you who are new to us, we hope you enjoy this program. These are obviously very trying times on personal and business levels for most of us in the room, I think. And many people have stepped up to help in ways that they can by providing services to healthcare workers or those who have to be out there and fulfill the community's needs in these times. we are a chamber of commerce. We're here to support people in their business needs. And so we put our heads together to think about what business needs do our members and supporters have in these times. And that's where this webinar series came up from. We kicked things off with a legal webinar to help our businesses understand how do you deal with employees in these times. And that was a well-attended kickoff webinar for this series. We had a webinar on the SBA loans, which are being offered to businesses. Today, obviously, we're talking about the CARES Act. In a few days, we're talking about additional government benefits available. And so our idea and our goal is to give our members the tools they need to make it through this time and come out on the other side, if not thriving, then at least solvent. And that's our goal. So if you have other ideas, please reach out to us. We're here to serve. We're here to come up with ways in which we can make our way through this trying time together. So please let us know your ideas and what other programs we can do to help you. Let me move on to introducing our speaker, one of our speakers for today. He is our past president, Swapan Theriyawan. As many of you may already know, he's a practicing CPA and the founder of a full-service accounting and tax firm called MD & Associates. He founded that business 15 years ago and has grown it quite a bit since then. Many of you, I imagine, are his clients. He obtained his master's in accounting from Bombay University, and his firm specializes in small and mid-sized businesses from various sectors and services. So without further ado, let me hand things over to our past president, Swapan Theriyawan.
Good afternoon to you. This is Swapan Theriyawan. Thank you so much, Tarush. Thank you, Jagdeepji, and the Chamber, of course, for setting up this seminar, which is more than likely most important during these trying times and those difficult times. The passing times which we are going through, it's a dynamic field, and of course, the biggest letter which everyone needs to learn from this is the 8-letter word, patience. And that is what we are going to talk about also. So before I start my presentation, I would like also to welcome and introduce my co-panelist, and that is Mahesh Desai. Mahesh Desai is also a practicing CPA and a certified financial planner in Houston for 20+ years. He was also the president with the CFP organization as well, and he volunteers a lot of his time also in the community, in the chamber, and various other organizations. With that, I start with my presentation for the day. The format is going to be, I will be presenting my presentation, followed by my co-panelist, Mahesh Bhai will be doing that. As we are doing that, we would be getting some questions in. We will try to answer as most as we can. And most likely than not, most of the questions are going to be directed towards the loan side, the EIDL, and the PPP as well. We are aware about that, but we still have to go through the entire process because the package is a stimulus package, and it's a big handout which has happened. It is more likely a Marshall Plan. A Marshall Plan was the one which was unveiled after the World War II, which was a $5 billion aid to the European countries for reconstruction. And the way in which it was put together and how it succeeded, we all have seen. So this as well is a big package as well, which we are going to talk about in 2 or 3 parts. So that being said, we will move on to our first slide, Bhavna. So this is the family's first Coronavirus Response Act. This was actually passed just immediately after the actual pandemic got started on that, and March the 17th, basically. We have done a specific employment law seminar, a webinar in this regard. And most of the points which are listed up over here talk about what nature and what schemes are available for employers as well as individuals. So it talks about the emergency family and medical leave expansion. It talks about the emergency unemployment insurance stabilization and the emergency paid sick leave act. There are the tax credits for which you will have to reach out as employers, because this is going to be a diverse crowd as well. There are going to be members and of course non-members from the chamber who are employees as well as small business owners, professionals, as well as mid-sized business owners. So some areas and some takeaways out of this, but these are the pointers that you can pose and ask your tax preparer, your professional, what you can get the advantage out of. So we are just putting out to what the availability resources are. That being said, the tax credits for the paid sick leave and family law scheme, that is there. All these things we are talking about private employers who are less than 500 employees. There is the clause for having public agencies and quasi-government entities also being part of this. Next slide, Bhavna. There is, under this act, there is the emergency paid sick leave provision, which is up till 10 days or 80 hours, and it has to be for 6 particular reasons, and it's based on full pay or 66% pay based on 6 reasons, and those 6 reasons are listed by the bill itself and the Treasury Secretary as well. So you can look up on the HSS website, the Treasury website, or the DOL website about that. It has quite foolproof case laws and question answers, kind of what needs to be paid. You can always go back to a professional or attorneys to discuss about this and what eligibility and what credits are available as regards this emergency sick leave or the FMLA leave which you provide to your employees. And remember, the employers cannot require employees to use the accrued leave first and then get started. That is one of the pointers. Moving on, Bhavna. For the businesses as employers, they have a refundable tax credit for this leave. So that particular forms we are still expecting because the quarters will be due and everything. So all these things would happen most likely than not towards April and May. The FICA and the FIT that you withhold from the employees, that can be deferred based on some criteria. There are some criteria. I don't want to go into the nutshell of it, but there are some very valid illustrations in which how you can be able to keep the dollar-to-dollar tax offset credits, as well as how you process your accelerated refunds as regards the employer taxes that you usually deposit on the EFTPS. Those are there. Next on, as I mentioned earlier, Bhavna, next page. It's about, we are talking about CARES. CARES Act is actually the Coronavirus Aid Relief and Economic Security Act, which got passed about March the 27th, and with the overwhelming majority from the Senate and of course the House, and it was signed by the President. This is a Marshall Plan, as I mentioned. It talks not only about the financial assistance which is being given, but also it covers the essential services and also the healthcare system, how they are going to get affected and how much funding is going to go into that big Marshall Plan. So it has significant relief to individuals as well as businesses and employers. So as we move on, there are some highlight examples. Actually, Mahesh Bhai will be covering some parts of that about how the taxpayers, the seniors, or the businesses will be getting that stuff. Next on the slide, we have the recovery rebates. That's a big thing, which is talked about most likely, is that for a single, it's 1,200. For the married filing jointly, it is 2,400. All it is based on income limits, and income limits, they are going to coordinate based on the 2018 tax filing done. Though the extension for 2019 has been done till July the 15th, the IRS is still urging people that if you have a refund, you can still process it. But if it is not, you can defer to do that. That being the case, there is the refund also for 500 per qualifying child. So qualifying child is less than 17. Then going forward, the SSA, this new guidance came about the people who are on Social Security and who technically don't need and don't file their tax returns on an annual basis because they just have Social Security system. But how do we get the refunds to them? How do we get the stimulus checks to them? So basically that would be tracked through their 1019 and SSAs, and they will be sent out the checks or direct deposited, whatever that would be. Remember, these checks will be mailed out, and it's being said preferably that April 13th is what they're expecting to get started with it. Some of the things they are based on your 2018 tax return, in the sense that if you had the direct deposit instruction for your 2018, then the stimulus money goes directly into that account as well. The IRS is bogged down, and there is a lot of waiting time as well. So if you call up the IRS, there's going to be a couple of hours wait, of course. So make sure your addresses, your change of address, whatever has been done timely, kind of a thing, because it's going to get started, the stimulus package and everything. The checks coming in the mail, appreciate the mailmen who are essential services. They are out over there and they're working themselves. Moving on, as I said earlier, patience is a big thing. It is unemployment benefits also is being covered under this entire act, which talks about self-employed employees as well. All these things are coming out, and I was reading an article possibly this morning, and it talked about those $600 that federal unemployment checks or whatever will be out possibly about in a week's time or whatever. They are piggybacking that based on the state unemployment records. So that's how it's being done. This entire act, there are some other provisions apart from the stimulus money, and that is going to be the penalties, which if you dip into your early distributions, your 401ks or your IRAs and retirement plans, till about 100K cumulative aggregated, the 10% penalty is being waived if it is corona-related distribution. There are some waivers on the RMD rules, the minimum required distribution rules, that you can still not take the RMDs, that kind of a thing. There is the expansion, that's a sweet thing, on the charitable contributions tax deduction, which they did. The Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, which was passed in 2017, had limited, actually, they went up from the 50% to the 60% of AGI limitation for charitable contributions. But the new CARES Act actually allows 100% deduction of charitable contributions of your AGI, kind of a thing. There are some rules about the modification on the net operating loss limitation rules. Those are the losses which were there usually if it was a C Corp or whatever. Those were limited because of the new Tax Cut Jobs Act to 80% of that. So that threshold has been removed. You can be able to carry that back and claim the refunds and everything if you had those annual rules. So those is there. There is a provision on the pass-through entities also about this pass rule. Next on. There, we are talking about the modification of the business interest deduction as well, which has happened. Earlier in the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, there was a 30% deduction on the interest portion of it, but the new act talks about a 50% allowability for interest. Then there has been a technical correction also, which was actually not taken care of in the 2017 Act, which was regarding qualified improvement property, which is the interior improvement of your property, which was supposed to be capitalized and depreciated over 15 years. But under this Act, they allowed 100% expensing and a bonus depreciation allowance on that. Next on is the deadlines, basically. The deadlines are changed for individuals. That's July the 15th. Same thing for the C Corps and the gift tax returns. Little guidance is still required on the 990, the non-profit organizations. Those forms are due on May the 15th. The guideline hasn't come out for that. Next on is, this is something that we picked up, we talk about from the IRS part of it, and that is something which is service from the IRS. They came up with their own People's First initiative, and they said that, okay, people are suffering, people are going through this. So what can we do and what we will be able to do? So they came up with this first initiative, which is avoid in-person contacts, remote and teleworking. They have started. They have suspended existing installment agreements till July the 15th. Remember, interest will still accrue on that. The offering compromises also, they have held up in abeyance. The non-filers also, if they are time barred, you have to file the tax returns, because the 2016 tax returns, if someone has not filed it, you still have to file it. Otherwise, it becomes time barred. The IRS has also suspended the liens and the levies, but that does not stop the revenue agents from pursuing the high-income non-filers for compliance, because that act, they came up in January of this year, so they are still doing that. The passport revocation also, they have suspended. Debt collectors being forwarded for private collectors, they also are going to stop that till this time. And they will not start any new field office or correspondence visits and examinations, is what they are saying, unless and until those are statute of limitations. So moving on, the SBA portion of that, I think so we had a webinar as well last week as well. It was talked about the SBA resources and what the economic injury disaster loans are. And the other one, which I'm going to briefly mention also, is going to be followed by this. This is about the EIDL, which is Economic Injury Disaster Loan. And this is, there is, and all the questions come up to that $10,000, I just went ahead, filled up the form, and it's born, do I get that? When do I get that? It was supposed to be 3 days from whatever it was applied for. We haven't seen much of that coming through. I haven't heard much about that, but this is a loan advance, but it will not have to be repaid. Most of the questions are coming up on that regard as well. There is also the provisions which they came up with, the Treasury came up with the guidance about the non-profits. Earlier, it was just the 501c3s and the 501c19 organizations. They have expanded that to most of the 501c6 as well as other organizations as well, for making them eligible on this EIDL loans and PPP. Next on, the euphoria which happens and for which none of our phones have stopped ringing is the PPP, which is the Paycheck Protection Program. And that is what everyone is talking about, and every question which comes up is regarding this. So this is almost a $349 billion payout, which has been part of this CARES package. And this is a loan. Remember, it's a loan, but it is designed to provide as a direct incentive for small businesses to keep their workers and their payroll and their employees on their payroll. So how that works and everything, we'll just go through it with a short example as well. But remember, as Jagdeep ji earlier mentioned, we are doing another seminar immediately on Thursday as well, which is being done by Wallace Bank, Nasrullah Khan, and which is going to talk specifically about the Paycheck Protection Program and how you can be able to join in and be part of that. It is a huge one. The statistics which came up just from the White House newsletter, which I just read this morning or something like that, says that almost 17,500 businesses had applied for close to $5.4 billion in loans till the time that this was set. But there were some technical glitches which are still there that we have to pass through from the SBA side because of the forms and everything which they uploaded. They sent the sample forms and everything, and on the last day, on the opening day when it was supposed to be live, the form got changed. So basically everyone is going through that rigors of that, but as I said earlier, patience, that's the big thing during this entire process. So this particular thing is SBA will forgive the loans if all the employees are kept on the payroll for 8 weeks and the money is used for payroll. Remember, a quick example, if your gross payroll was $10,000 a month in 2019, all decisions are based on the 2019 payroll liabilities and payroll forms that you have submitted to the IRS, because those were due on 31st of January of 2020. So based on those, suppose your payroll was $10,000, so that implies 2.5 times that becomes $25,000. So that becomes your loan. That loan, if you keep your employees and going forward, you use them for the next 2 months, out of that at least 20,000, 75%, that is 20,000 at least you use for payroll. The rest of the money you can still use it for rent, or utilities. If you do that, there is the criteria that this grant would be forgiven or this loan will be forgiven. If not, always there is a question that if you do not follow that pattern, then yes, it is still a loan to you, which is at a 1%, and it is for a 2-year period, which is still there. Going forward, Bhavna, next, the loan, how it has to be fully forgiven, that it talks about it, how much that is. I am running out of my time, and I think so Mahesh Bhai will be coming in quick, but I will just talk about this, how the calculation is based on your 2019 data, and of course 941 and your 940s is the baseline for that. Next on, a quick cautions is what I'm going to give over here, and those cautions are basically all these things are happening during a phase when people are out there, and there are scamsters out there, there are conmen out there. So make sure your VPNs, all those things are secure. You only trust or open emails from trusted sources. Beware of phishing and spoof links and suspicious attachments, because we have been facing and seeing most of that. All this data which is coming to you, maybe from your tax preparer, your accountant, and all those things, it has vital information as well. So, but there are people out over there who are trying to gather that data. So adopt guidelines, be safe as you are about your health, same way, keep your data as well safe. Moving forward, these are the typical questions about the PPP plan. What types of businesses are eligible and for the PPP loans and plans. So this entire presentation will be uploaded to the Chamber website, and Jagdeep ji will be talking about that at the end, how you can be able to access that and everything. But this is a lot of data over here about what businesses do qualify, but most likely than not, almost every small and mid-sized business. Then these are the affiliation. Next is talks about the affiliation rules, because that's what SBA guidelines say, which are the affiliate organizations and which are the control organizations. So this is what it talks about. Moving forward, we talk about, if I get an EIDL, can I get a PPP? Keep that in mind. You can still do that, but the funds that you're using should not be for the same. You cannot double dip the same thing. Suppose you are applying for EIDL, which is for payment of your mortgage or your rent or any other causes or your supplies or whatever. The PPP specifically talks only about the employees and the payroll, which is being protected for. So that being the case, keep your books and your information separate, because it's going to be a chaos a year down the line. You are going to forget most likely than not what you did, and it's going to, but most likely than not, the data is being captured somewhere, SBA and banks or IRS. They will come and ask you all these questions about how it was used, and those things were there. So your record keeping, your bookkeeping needs to be clean and clear. Moving forward, we are talking about how is the loan size determined. So basically there is a criteria of the SBA, which is based on the maximum loan is 10 million. So we'll just move from there because we have to take Mahesh Bhai as well quickly. Next one is, what are the allowable uses of loan proceeds? The payroll cost, that's the important thing. Payroll cost, that's what it is. And rest of the documents are going to be your rent, mortgage, or utilities and everything like that. Have that data also available while applying for the PPP, because 75% has to be used for the payroll. The rest of the stuff, you can still use it for the other content. Next one is, how is the forgiveness amount calculated? So it is based on the payroll cost during the 8-week period that you are going to pay the employees. Remember, the employees who are highly paid employees having compensation of more than 100,000 will be excluded out of that. Every entity will be unique. Each loan is going to be registered based on the EIN number, the TIN number, so that SBA will prevent multiple loans from happening. So keep that in mind. All the things that you are signing off, there are perjury documents in the PPP application, though the application will look Just 2-page, short, sweet, and done. Read them, understand them before you sign off anything, because they are perjury documents. Next on, how do I get forgiveness on my PPP loan? So that's what it talks about. This is something which happens close to after June and July. Basically, that's the time when the banks are going to ask you, okay, I have given you that 25,000 PPP protection plan loan. Okay, now give me the documents. How did you use it? And based on that, they are going to allow you and forgive you that debt. Moving on, when should I where should I go and get a PPP loan from? Your banker. Um, if he is an SBA provider. If not, any other SBA provider you can go through. And Treasury has the list of them who are the lenders. Some of the banks have started some rules about being their original customers, like Chase for that matter, which is a big bank. They said that if you have been a customer with us from February 15th, then only you can be part of our package. Otherwise, if you go to them with a package and you are starting a new account, that's not going to be possible. But there are other banks as well, other SBA providers as well, who you can reach out to, who is eligible for the EIDL, and then that's all. I have to close on. My time is almost up. My information is on the slide. Keep social distance and help us all to curb the virus. Thank you.
So Swapanji, before you hand over to Mahesh Bhai, I just want to make one disclaimer on behalf of the Chamber. I should have made it at the beginning. For the benefit of the listeners, this webinar is for information purpose only. We are trying to guide you, but we would not accept any responsibility. We would recommend very strongly that you talk to your own tax provider or to your own financial consultant to get the proper financial and legal advice. Because as I said, we are making this disclaimer that the Chamber is trying to serve the community by collecting all the information. The professionals who speak to you are the top professionals, but still, neither the professional nor we can take responsibility for any misinterpretation. So we would encourage you to talk to your professional or to contact the speakers offline to discuss individual cases, because this is for information only. Back to you, Swapanji. Sorry for the interruption.
I'm done with Mahesh Bhai. You can proceed. Bhavna, you can get started with Mahesh Bhai's presentation. Thank you all.
Thank you, Swapanji. Thank you, Jagdeep. And thank you, Mr. Tarush Anand and Bhavna, for putting together a wonderful webcast for the benefit of the members. So before I start my formal presentation, I have a few points to make. If you read the goal and the intent behind the legislation, there are two mainly legislation that Congress has passed: FFCRA, Family First Corona Relief Act, and then CARES, your government CARES, Corona Virus Aid Relief and Economic Security Act. If you see both of them, the goal is to make sure that you survive through the coronavirus timeframe. Once the virus is gone, your business is going to be up and running. There is no physical restrictions like a war or 9/11 or something like that. So as soon as the virus issue goes away, you are going to be back and running. And that's why the main issue is the liquidity in your employee. If you keep your employee with you, then you will be able to open up your business sooner rather than later, and you will be back and running, and you will make money, and you will have a revenue. So right now, what Congress is doing is that how you can conserve your cash, and that is the reason why we have both these legislation that has been passed to help you to sustain through this crisis. And also, before we go ahead, make sure that you have your last 3 years tax return and all other financial records available, because whether you are applying for PPP or credit or whatever, those documents will be needed to verify, because the bank are having so many applications for the relief that they are going to have to verify this thing. So with that, Swapanji already covered the relief, and the relief should be coming, the money should be coming to you hopefully by end of this month. If you have been depositing your refund into your bank account, then Treasury has this information. You don't need to file your extra tax return or extra form. The money will be coming to you directly to you in your bank account. If you are getting the refund by check, then it may take some time, but it will come to you. You don't need to do anything. Next, please. So this relief is available up to $150,000 of AGI, and you will get it automatically. It is not to be repaid, and it is not going to be included in your income. So that's a great relief. Next one. If you are the victim of coronavirus or your family has been going through, or you are taking care of any of the family members, or you have been laid off, or for any such coronavirus related issues, you need to withdraw the money from your retirement funds. And if you are under 59 and a half, then the 10% penalty normally applies. But if you are withdrawing in a prevailing situations related to the coronavirus, then the withdrawal will be subject to tax, but the withdrawal will not be subject to the 10% early withdrawal penalty. If you have the need for more than what the government can assist you, like if you are employed and you are just getting $1,200 and then you still need some money, and your next resources is your dipping into your retirement plan and withdraw the money, and you do not have to pay the penalty. Next one. So as I said, your family and your employee are going to be the first one to help you when you get back to your business. The employee retention credit is a very important credit. Now, remember this is a credit, and you can use it to offset your employer portion of Social Security and Medicare. So here is how this ballpark going to work. Let's say you have a 15, 20 employee and you bring them back to work, and now you have to deposit their, not only their Social Security and Medicare, but you have to match as an employer your Social Security and Medicare, and you are running low on cash because your business has not picked up. Then there are two things available to you. One is you can defer the payment of your employer portion of the payment in for 2 years. So you can pay until 2021, first installment 50%, and then you can wait until 2022. So until December 31st, 2022, you have a time limit to pay. However, if you keep the employee and that employee is retained by you, then 50% of the wages that you pay can offset that amount is a credit. That amount of the credit can be utilized to pay the employer portion of Social Security and Medicare. So having said that, I want to make sure that if you are not getting PPP, or if you are denied, or if you have not bothered to apply, or there is no bank, for whatever reason you cannot get PPP, then make sure that you can use this retention credit when you file your 941 forms for second, third, fourth quarter of this year. Now, another important point for you to remember is that if you have taken advantage of PPP and you are likely to be forgiven, and that is all subject to future timings, and banks and SBA and all those regulations are being updated daily. We are not sure, but keep that thing in mind. If you use the PPP, then you cannot use the employee retention credit, the same wages for the PPP as well as the retention credit. So if you have one employee and let's say you kept him during this crisis, and you also got a PPP, and they forgive your PPP because you kept the employee, you cannot get the employee retention credit for the same wages. So that is what you need to keep in mind. And this is a very generous credit. I mean, if you have a 15, 20, 50 employee or 100 employees, and you have your employer share of FICA, Social Security and Medicare is substantial, then you should be able to use this credit and reduce your cash flow, and you will be able to reduce employer portion of your taxes, and you can use this. So this is very important one. Keep in mind. Next one. Bhavna, next one. Hello. Hello. Yeah. Thank you. So this credit is available to you, and also with that, you have some more other credit available to you. I will talk to you as we go forward, but this credit is available with fewer than 100 employees, and all wages qualify, whether you were in operation or not, whether the employer was in operation or not. You can be partially running, you can be shut down, and you can be eligible for claiming this credit. Next one. So this delay of employer payroll deposit, I just talked about it. If you have a need for the money, you can wait to pay the Uncle Sam. You don't need to pay the liability right away. You have to think about whether you are going to get PPP and whether you are going to be forgiven. And if not, you can use this credit, and after that you can pay. And if you don't get even PPP and you have still to pay after even utilizing the credit, you still owe the money to the Uncle Sam for payroll deposits or payroll tax deposits, then you can pay it in a 2 installment. So that's a great thing for liquidity point of view. Next one. So Swapanji already covered this business losses. If you remember, there was a no carry backward of the losses. Now you can take it, when you could only take it forward, but they relaxed this thing. You can take it back and you can file it, the amended return for claiming the refund. If you are C Corp, if you are S Corp, then you had that 80% loss limitations, because the K1 will flow through, and since you were not subject to first 20% of the income, they limited the loss to 80% of the total loss. But now they are allowing 100% of the losses, so that is a great relief for the businesses. And when you file your taxes for 2019, 19 into 20 and 20 and going forward until 2021, I guess, you should be able to use these losses and take advantage of that. Next one. This is very important qualified improvement property. Swapanji already discussed this thing. I mean, if you make a improvement in your interior building. So this is especially for many real estate businesses, restaurant, where you want to make an improvement, internal improvement for good aesthetic appeal, or if you need to replace interior, you can do that. And the entire expenses, instead of capitalizing and depreciating over a period of 15 years, you can take 100% bonus depreciation. So this is a very good change, and that change was implemented in the CARES Act. So if you have any such need to do the improvement, and do it while this is available to you, and so you will be able to reduce your taxes. Next one. So paid sick leave and the credit resulting from the paid sick leave. So when this coronavirus issues came up, many employees were reluctant to go to the work, or if they had symptoms, but there was no testing, and they were not sure whether they should go to the work, and they just reported sick. And there were issues like, hey, do you have a coronavirus? If not, you should come back. And there were a lot of other human resource HR issues and all those things. So the government came out and say, well, you can get a paid sick leave up to 2 weeks. And this is not under the FMLA. Family Medical Leave Act is different, and this is CARES Act. So under the CARES Act, you can be paid during the sick leave. And now this is the employee side of the story. Now, if you're an employer and if you pay your employee who is sick, what happens to you? So that's what we will talk about it now. So next one. So let's say you paid your employee and you did not have a regular provisions of sick leave, and like small businesses, they don't have a formal leave policy. but the employee was sick, small restaurant or small subway or a small hotel, the employee was sick, he did not come, you choose to pay the employee out of compassion, or just because the employee is good and he will come back and he was sick and you are a great business, then the government says, well, if you do that, then we'll help you by providing a credit because you paid the employee and when he was sick. So that credit is also available. The detailed rules will be forthcoming. I guess when the new Form 941 is rolled out, probably we'll have those informations. So just keep an eye on that and take advantage of that. Next one. Yeah, so child care leave credit. This is another important thing. Just imagine a single woman, a 2 3-year-old child. Nobody's nobody's there at home to take care of the child. The child care facilities are all shut down because of the coronavirus fear. She's healthy, she wants to go to the work, but she can't work because she doesn't have anybody with whom she can leave her child. And so she has to stay at home and she's taking care of the child. She's taking a leave. She's not getting paid. Now, as an employer, if you pay to her, then uh, you can be entitled for the credit. So if you have those situations as an employer, and if you have paid your employee for taking care of the child, then you should be able to claim the child care leave credit. So these are the small credit. This credit, remember this thing. Another thing is that the credit reduces your tax payable dollar for dollar. So it's a straight money in your pocket. When you claim a credit, it reduces your tax payable or amount that you have to pay to the Uncle Sam. Next one. Yeah, so this is the very important concept for the business people, and they are looking for it. I see here the interest rate of 0.5%. So, and I think there was some information that I saw 1%. Before that, it was like higher than that. So these rules are being changed. So don't quote me on that. But this is an important program. As Papanji said, work with your bank, if possible, with whom you have a banking relationship. If your bank is not accepting, then you can look for other borrowers, other lenders. The Treasury is working to line up some more lenders because some of the banks have kept out, like Wells Fargo. This is, well, we have reached our limits. And so this issue is an evolving issue. Right now, the Congress doesn't know exactly how much amount of the application will come under PPP and how much they will have to disperse and how much will be forgiven. So this is all up in the air. But if you have the resource, if you have the time and if you have the need, go ahead and apply for Paycheck Protection Program. The bank will be willing to work with you. Wallace Bank, I think they have a great support for small business community, and Bank of America and many other banks are coming up, but they are still developing their system. But if you can be in loop with the bankers, that should help you. Next one. So this is not this loan doesn't require guarantee or collateral. It's that's one of the greatest advantage. And if the portion of the loan is forgiven, then you don't have to pay that portion, and rest of them you can pay within 2 years. So that's a great advantage. And I don't know how much amount you will get it. It's usually like 2.5 times your average monthly payroll, plus your health benefit and all those things. There's a calculation formula given on the SBA website, or Swapanji had put up on the web link. You can search on Google and you should be able to find it, but the loan may not be substantial if your payroll amount was small. And if that is the case, then you have a high chances of getting it through the bank because bank wants to keep the small business in operations under the SBA's directives. So it should help you. Next one. Yeah, so forgiveness, we already covered. It's the important point is that forgiveness is not going to be included in income, just like your 1099-C cancellation of debt. So if you don't pay the obligations, it's not going to, I mean, if you don't pay, then I don't know what the SBA will do. But if the SBA or bank will forgive, then you don't have to pay the tax on that income. So next one. Yeah, and so now that's about it. I'm end of my presentation, and I'll pass it on to Jagdeep or Swapanji.
I will let Swapanji conduct the rest of the meeting because it's going to be questions and answers that either Swapanji or Maheshji will answer. So Swapanji, back to you, please.
There were some questions and answers which were on the chat and everything, and those have been responded. There were a few ones which are still remaining. Mahesh bhai, if you want to take a few of them, because I responded 8 of them already. 12 of them already. There are 6 or 7 still open.
Okay, so I'll take one is the first 10,000 of EIDL is forgiven under what circumstances? We do not know the situations right now, but I have heard that the EIDL will be rolled over into PPP. And so the bank will probably give the response to you. The next one, hold on, this open, yeah, okay. Are owners eligible for unemployment benefit if they are employee with W-2 and file employees on TWC? Well, yeah, if you want to fire yourself, you should be able to, but then if your business is shut down and if you want to declare yourself as unemployed, then TWC will determine that you are unemployed and you should be able to get it. The check will be deposited even if there is no prior tax filing and have not received the refund. Well, in that situation, if the account number is not there on the file, then you will have to get the check manually. That may take some time. And I think that's the best answer I can give you. If the U.S. Department of Treasury, IRS, does not have your banking information, you will not get your check deposited, money deposited into your account. You will get the check.
Exactly. I will like to say one thing over here, Bhavna. Okay. Mahesh, I would like to say one thing over here. For few of them, that was a good question that if the bank did not, the IRS did not have the banking information for 2018, can we go ahead and tell the IRS they are not taking any request now? So that cannot be processed now. The second thing is, say suppose you're 2018, and we have seen it more often than not. I recently found it with a taxpayer of mine that his 2018 bank account was already hacked. Now the IRS has the data of his 2018 information, and now he is asking me, how do I correct that? How does that happen? So in that scenario, the check coming in the mail would have been the better option for him. So that is what has happened also. Go ahead, Mahesh bhai.
Yeah, so one question is, how will the S corporation with no employee use PPP loan? Will they simply use it as their compensation? Well, if you are S corp, you should have a reasonable compensation rules applies to you, and you should have some paycheck. You should be compensating yourself. If you don't have any employee and if you are not taking any payroll, then they are asking for 941 and the W-2 information when you submit the PPP loan. So maybe that is going to be a gray area for you over there, and maybe you may not be eligible for PPP loan based on what the rules we see right now. What happens if single filer has dependent older than 17 years? Can he get 2,400 or only 1,200? Well, single filer has a dependent older than 17 years, and well, I would say he should be able to get 1,200, but then you have to file. You should go ahead and file the tax return with no income for that person. I mean, by claiming dependent on you, what is the advantage? Now the personal exemption is gone, so it may not make sense for you to file him as a dependent. If you want to get $1,200, you can do that by filing a new tax return for 2019.
But Mahesh bhai, I would like to interject over here. For some of them, that might be a wise idea, because some of them who have taken Obamacare or whatever, you are reporting the forms on the 8958 and whatever, and the 8962 reconciliation has to be done. And if that is not done, he will owe the money if that dependent is not considered. So just wanted to interject over there.
Yeah, and that is true. But if you send in saying that I'm being claimed as a dependent on this person, then they do reconcile the healthcare credit. But if they have not taken healthcare credit, then it's the
But most likely than not, we have seen the examples that they are getting the credit and those are being exactly applied for. And if you take off the dependents, then they will owe instead of getting that. So it
that's
may
right.
not be scenario that may be or may not be. That's the thing. So it's not a blanket thing that you should file it for them as well.
Yeah, that's right. So the next one is, if we already have followed employee, can we rehire them and still qualify for PPP given PPP loan forgiveness for the duration of their payroll after the rehire date? Yeah, I think the rules provide for it. If you rehire them and keep them as a employee for next 8 weeks, I believe then you should be able to qualify for PPP. I'm employed by my company and earn wages over 100,000. How will this impact possible loan from PPP and EIDL? I think the 100,000 is a limit. If you are earning over 100,000, then that is not included. That employee is not included for the PPP or EIDL. Is that the correct interpretation?
Mahesh Bhai, I believe the correct interpretation is that you can only count up to 100,000 for each employee. That employee will not be disqualified. But let us say an employee makes $150,000. You can only account for $100,000 under this act, and the 50,000 over the 100,000 will be ignored. Because this was a question that had come to the chamber, and I had checked with somebody, and the response I got was that you will only count up to the 100,000 for each employee, and the rest will be ignored. So, Swapanji, can you clarify?
Yes, that is right. Up till 100,000 is what it will be considered. If someone is 110 or 105, the excess will not be considered to be part of the PPP.
Okay, thank you.
Can we add a W-9 contractor also part of the payroll calculation? No. The 1099 and the contractors, for them there is the different program is coming out on April the 10th, and they apply through that program. This is only for small businesses who have employees who are filing their 941s and 940s on an annual basis. Go ahead, Mahesh.
I didn't see that question here. Which one is that?
No, I answered that. Can a W-9 contractor be considered for this?
Okay. So the next one is, while applying online for EIDL, we have to provide business owners detail. In case business is owned by foreign entity, there is no field to enter given city and advise. I think the businesses has to be in United States, and all the employees has to be in United States. That's what I have seen in the guideline. So foreign businesses are excluded from PPP and EIDL.
Good question. Can I file for unemployment as well as EIDL or a PPP? So always keep that in mind. You cannot double dip anything. These are the resources which the government has taken a whole lot of effort to make sure that everyone, and as a social economy, we as global citizens have to adhere to. We cannot be double dipping on all of the things. Whatever is available based on, if you are on the unemployment side, that's fine. If you are on the PPP, you are using it through the payment protection program as well. The EIDL is basically economic injury just for the businesses based on their factors that the business has shrunk, has gone down based on the numbers that you had in 2019. So based on that, good question. We are going to be determined by history eventually based on our ethics, morality, and doing the right things.
Swapanji, I have a question that had come to me earlier today. For a contract employee who is on a 1099, if he or she applies for the CARE program or one of the current programs, will they be disqualified, or will it be rolled, or
Jagdeep, their program is opening up, the SBA is opening up the self-employed thing on April the 10th. So the 1099 contractors, similar to this, they will have to file their own thing. So under that guidelines, what paperwork and what form will be provided, we have no idea at the moment.
No, my question was, if somebody has already applied, will it be rolled over to the next program, or will they have to reapply?
They will have to reapply.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, the next one is out of Schedule C and S corporation in the corporation, which line to use to compute monthly payroll? Well, I would say they are asking for the 941 and W2 copies. So those gross wages is plus the benefit and all those addition, the sick leave and whatnot will be added. So keep all the information and go line by line. What is considered the total employment, total payroll wages, and then from there you can move forward. So that is the documentation that they will ask you. Tapanji, you want to take the next one?
Okay.
Okay, let me take this one. Can we count contributions to our 401k by employer as qualified usage of PPP loan and still get loan forgiven? I have not seen that in the guideline put out by the SBA. I have seen the rent, mortgage interest, utility payment towards the use of the PPP loan. So the loan forgiven, the amount that will be forgiven we may not include the 401k contributions by employer.
Our office is closed. How can we pay hourly employees to take advantage of the PPP loan? So the PPP loan, if you apply it to the bank, whatever that will be, eventually you once they determine that you are eligible for that, and at the moment I understand the process is about 3 weeks is the turnaround time that they would be taking. Basically, you will, when the funds come in, that is the time that you can get started and paying them. But if you are paying some people on an hourly even today, you still have to dip into the reserves basically or whatever, because the money is not instant. It's still not in.
This is interesting. And we are applying for USA registered entity owned by Indian entity. Well, let me tell you this, we completed a couple of applications and it asked for the owner's name, address, social security number, and citizenship or green card information. So this person can try, but I don't think that's going to be succeeded because the USA entity is owned by Indian entity, and Indian entity's owner, I'm assuming that they are residing in India. So they may not be able to qualify.
Another interruption, this is Jagdeep again. I see that some people have been putting their questions on the chat instead of in the Q&A window. We were recommending that our panelists answer the questions in the Q&A window. So if anybody of you have put your questions in the chat window, I would recommend retyping it in the Q&A window so that they can be addressed. We are already at 3 o'clock. When would you like to wrap up, Swapanji?
We can do about 5-10 minutes more. Mahesh bhai, if you're okay with that?
Yeah, that's fine.
Right. So again, I repeat, if anybody has typed a question in the chat window, I would recommend retyping it in the Q&A window so that they can be addressed. Back to you, Swapanji and Maheshji.
Okay. What if the company has to fold after the PPP loan is granted and the funds have been used over a 60-day period? Would it still be forgiven? Good question. It is based on 2019 data. As long as you have used the funds legitimately for the provisions for the next 2 months, or that is going to be almost 8 weeks, and the bank is satisfied with that being used correctly and everything, and is forgiven, you are at liberty to close out your company. That would be. But anything else, Mohesh, you want to add on that?
No.
Okay.
Okay, so this is the next one I want to take it. Is there any extension for 941 due for the first quarter 2020? Well, you should wait to file because I think you should be able to claim some credit. And so don't just rush to the file. There should be some extension coming for 941 for the first quarter also. And then if we already filed the tax return, do we need to amend the tax return to get benefit? No, you don't need to file. I guess they are talking about the relief recovery, relief stimulus payment. No, you don't need to file it because the 1,200 or 2,400 or with the kids payment of 500 will come to you automatically. You don't need to refile. The next one is, does ERTC, Employee Retention Tax Credit, restrict you from taking EIDL? The documentation on mentions that you can't take PPP. It doesn't mention EIDL. Okay, so this is how it is going to work. EIDL is an emergency $10,000 you can get from the SBA if you are approved for the emergency loan. That may be rolled over into PPP if you apply for PPP. When you apply for PPP, they will check if you have got EIDL. And if the PPP amount is forgiven against the wages that you have paid, then against those wages, you cannot use the employee retention tax credit. If you have not applied for PPP, or if you have not been forgiven, that may be a case that the entire loan may not be forgiven. And then you still have paid your employees and you want to use this tax credit, then yes, you can use that, but it's not for the same wages. So for example, you have one employee, you hired him and you paid him, even though he did not work. You applied for PPP, you got the forgiveness, and now you cannot turn around and say, oh, on 941, give me the other credit because I paid that employee also. So that's not permissible.
If husband and wife both work, can they file two applications for the EIDL? Yes, in the sense that if they are working self-employed, they are separately, they have a separate EIN number, TIN number, or whatever, and you're applying the economic injury disaster loan based on that, you can separately do that. Can we count contributions towards 401k by employer match as qualified usage of PPP loan and still get the loan forgiven? Yes, it is part of the employee cost, gross payroll. Anything missing?
Yeah, I know it is difficult. It says, I know it's difficult to guess, but if you can, is there any indication as to how long the PPP check will be coming through and how we will be informed? So your bank is the main source of information. You have to apply the PPP through your bank. The bank will be in touch with you regarding how much they approved, and then the bank will give you in writing the conditions and the documentations for forgiveness. So that is how you will be informed. I don't think there are multiple PPP checks are coming, and there may be one loan, and that loan will be forgiven if you follow through the conditions. So that's what I would like to clarify.
So Swapnji,
yes.
I think we've come to the end of the seminar. Are there any other final comments or remarks that the two of you would like to make? I would like to mention once again to everybody who has logged into the webinar that I would strongly recommend going to the SPA website and reading the rules and regulations yourself, because both these CPAs have very busy schedules. We are really grateful that they have made the time to volunteer to make these presentations. But we all know that the rules keep changing every hour. The form was actually changed at 11 o'clock on Thursday night. And we were talking to the district director of the SPA on Open Forum this last Saturday, and he said that they were flying in an aircraft while they were still building it. So this is an evolving program. So as we speak, some of the rules and regulations may have changed. So our disclaimer from the chamber is that please talk to a tax professional, talk to your regular professional, or talk to either Swapanji or Maheshji offline in a professional capacity so that they can identify and explore your file appropriately. But as I said, today's program was more educational. We have already forwarded the PowerPoint presentation and the invitation to Thursday's webinar with Mr. Nasir Khan from Wallace State Bank, who will be talking about the PPP in detail. So that has already been sent to every one of you. So today's presentation has already been emailed to you, to the email that you used to register for today's event. With that, I'm handing it back to Swapanji and Maheshji for their final comments. But thank you everybody for logging in. We had over 100 people who had logged in. We had 190 signed up, more than 100 had logged in at different times. So we appreciate all of you who had taken the time. Back to you, Swapanji.
So thank you so much, Jagdeepji. Again, the final comments are going to be, this is a dynamic thing which is happening. It's evolving, changing. Read, research, but don't interpret everything by yourself. Sometimes it might need outside help, a different view. So make sure about that, whoever your tax professional or tax advisor is. And this is a great plan to come up with, and this might not be the last one. There might be something more which might come through, which is being talked about. But for now, this is what we have. Follow the guidelines, follow the rules, and stay safe.
So thank you, Swapanji. Yeah, thank you, Swapanji. I will echo what Swapanji said, and then first of all, make sure you keep all your documents in order, keep your financial house in order. Number two, don't interpret the rule as you like them to be. Rules are rules. Somebody else is going to be interpreting for you. So that's number two. Number three is that your government cares, and they cares in your good time and bad time. So make sure that what is being offered to you, take advantage of that, but do it honestly and with grace, so that you don't have to face the music in terms of any other issues that go through. And all these issues are going to be examined by the bank and the SBA, because they are putting the money into your pocket. And when they are putting money into your pocket, they want to make sure that it is for the intended purpose. So that's all my last words. And thank you, Swapanji, thank you, Jagdeep, and thank you all for attending.
So Swapanji, with this, can I join you in thanking Bhavna for all her hard work in putting this together? And Swapanji, will you give Bhavna the instructions to shut down the meeting?
Yes, sure. Thank you so much again, everyone. And be safe. Bhavna, thank you so much for coordinating all this efforts and doing this. This is third in line, and you are becoming a master and a pro on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Bhavna.
So Bhavna, the webinar is over. You can shut the meeting down. Thank you, everybody. Hope you will log in on Thursday for the PPP program. Be safe and financially healthy. Thank you and bye.